right? Okay. Starting with our sponsors, Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend, Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malka Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Peres, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gidler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, shall share her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva, Marcia Fetterbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Fetterbush, Oriel ben Harav Shimon, and friends of Joe Wolf, in memory of Joe Yosef ben Chaim. A Month of Learning by Adina and Michael Kirshner, in memory of their parents, Florence and Nathan Kirshner, and friend Harriet Friedman. Tova and Leo Zimmer, in memory of her mother, Henya Bas Rab Beryl, and father Aaron ben Yosef Mordechai. Perry and Jill Meltzer, in memory of his mother, Malka Bas Baruch, and sister Golda Leah Bas David Halevi. Carol and Josh Sanborn, in memory of her father, Yoshua Shia ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. Stanley Presser, in memory of his mother, Leah Bas Yehuda, mother-in-law Golda Bas Avram, and wife Ruchel Mincha Bas Moshe. Ruth Burian and Judy and Edward Boehm, in memory of Ruth and Judy's mother, Hadassah Bas Azriel Zelig V'Miriam, and father Yitzchak ben Yosef Esther. Have a week of learning, sponsored by Harry and Myra Wild, in memory of his father, Shraga bat Yechezkel, also by Mark and Catherine Linder, in memory of his father, Chaim ben Yechezkel Eli Melech. Today being the 9th of February, we have a day of learning by Natalie Goldstein, in memory of her father-in-law, Eliyahu Hirsch ben Kalman Halevi, and by Lynn Rappaport, in memory of her great-grandson, Shlomo ben Sion HaKohen. And Shamas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Vati Yashir Shem Atzliah, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good Geben Shtiar.
Amen.
Okay. All right.
Amen.
Pei Amud Aleph. Right? Where we saw on the top of the Amud, a drasha, right? Why, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Mataya, you cannot simply use a majority of one, right? Ein hayachid machriya et tzibur letuma, he said. Why? Because of the drasha, lo tuchal lizboach et ha-pesach be'echad sha'arecha. Okay, interesting drasha there. Okay, so number one there in the pasuk was used to convey that criteria. Now, so we're dealing again still with this whole issue of what about the majority? What about the minority? What if it's half and half? Okay. What about the issue of bringing the Korban Pesach and Tuma? What about bringing it on the first time, regular Pesach, or the second time, Pesach Sheni? So we're picking up on Pei Amud Aleph, second line. Rabbi Shimon Omer, says Rabbi Shimon, Afilu shevet echad tameh, if one tribe is tameh, V'shar kol hashvatim tahorim, and the other tribes are all tahor. Halalu osin la'atzman, v'halalu osin la'atzman. These do it according to theirs, and they do it according to theirs. So we would think, however, should that be the case, right? If we've been saying that the minority supposedly gets put off to Pesach Sheni, okay, does that only apply to an individual? Or does in this case, according to Rabbi Shimon, why doesn't it apply to a full tribe? My Talmud the Rabbi Shimon, asks the Gemara. Kasavar shevet echad ikre kahal. Because he's under the perspective that a single tribe is considered like a kahal, a group, a community. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, afilu shevet echad tameh. Even if one tribe is tameh, shar kol hashvatim tahorim, and the other tribes are all tahor, ya'asu betum'ah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, one would still carry out the Korban Pesach in a status of tameh. She'ein korban sibor chaluk. Because we say as a communal offering, it does not get divided up. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Savar, shevet echad ikre kahal. Are we saying then that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a single tribe is considered like a community? If that's the case, v'havu laho palga upalga. Then we would have a situation of even with one tribe tameh and 11 tribes tahor, it would be equivalent to, right, half and half. Ve'ein korban sibor chaluk. But we say that a community offering is not divided. Va'avdei kulhu betuma. And they should all then carry it out in that situation as if they were tameh. Now, Gemara wants to come back reviewing this situation. Itmar, what was said about this as follows. Hayu Yisrael mechza tahorim umechza tme'in. If among the Jewish community, the Israelites, half were pure and half were tameh. Amar Rav, according to Rav, mitam'in, right? Achad mehen b'sheretz. The answer would simply be, take one person, make him tameh, right? B'tumas sheretz. That would therefore give us a majority of one under tuma, right? Va'amai, and why should we do it that way? Na'avdu hani l'chudaihu, v'hani l'chudaihu. Why can't we simply let this group do one korban, that group do the other, right? Daha amar Rav. Why? Because about this, Rav also said the following. Halalu osin la'atzman, v'halalu osin la'atzman. So we almost seem to have a conflict between what Rav says here and he said elsewhere. Amrei. And therefore we say as follows. Hacha b'mayas kinan, what are we dealing with? Kagon shahayu tme'in odfin al hatorin echad. It was a situation where the number of those that were tameh merely, overcame, right, the number of those tahor by one. Yihachi, if that's the case, says the Gemara, suggesting an alternative approach, havulaho rubat mein. Then we would have the majority of being people tameh. V'na'avdu kulhu betuma. And then shouldn't we then do the korban pesach as we would rule in a status of tameh? on its appointed time, having everybody do it on the first of Pesach, Pesach, right? Savar la Rabbi Eliezer ben Mataya. No, we're saying perhaps it's such that Rav also holds the same view of Rabbi Eliezer ben Mataya, namely, Da'amar ein hayachid machria et hatzibur l'tuma, that you simply can't have a majority of one leading us to a decision of offering the korban in tuma status. Ihachi, if that's the case, says the Gemara, hadar kushyan laduchte, then our problem, our question, comes back to its original status.
Right.
Ni avdu hani lechudayu, bahani lechudayu. Let us have these do it according to their situation, and these to their situation. Ela hachi kamar. This is what we mean to say. Ikatana, the savar la katana kama. If there is a Tana that's of the opinion like our original Tana, excuse me, the Amar Palga Upalga Lo Avde Kulhu Batuma, that if when it's half and half, we do not have everyone do the offering in a status of Tuma. V'savarla ka Rabbi Yehuda. Perhaps then he's of the opinion that of Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar, who also says, Ein korban sibor chalut, that we also don't divide, right? The communal offering. What happens then? Metam'in echad mehen b'sheretz. Then we can cause an individual to become sheretz tameh, and that would give, in that situation, then we would have a rove of tameh.
Right.
Now, Ula, however, wants to suggest an alternative suggestion. V'ula amar, mishalchin echad mehem l'derech rechoka. Maybe we send one of them away, okay, and reduce the number on one side,
right,
so that a different side is the rove, okay? But the Gemara has a problem with Ula's suggestion. Viyatam enu b'sheretz. But wouldn't it be easier simply to make him tameh through a sheretz tuma rather than sending him away? Okay, because that also is going to affect, as we're going to see in a moment, his status of being able to bring the korban pesach.
right.
Kasava. Why? Because Ula seems to be of the opinion, shochtin v'zorkin al tameh sheretz, that it's possible to slaughter the korban and to sprinkle the blood even when somebody is tameh sheretz. So the Gemara says, fine. If that's Ula's perspective, vita am anu b'meit. So have him become corpse tameh. Okay? If that's the case, answers the Gemara, midachehu ata mechagigato. Then not only are you pushing him off in that situation, okay, from being able to do the korban pesach, because if he had been only tameh sheretz, he could have immersed and still eaten the korban pesach at night. But if he's corpse tameh, okay, he can't immerse that day. He has to wait the 7th day. And you're putting him off from korban pesach. So he'd have to do that the 2nd pesach. But you're also pushing him off and from being able to do his korban chagiga at the appropriate time. Hashta, says the Gemara, now Nami medachehu ata mepischo. So you therefore pushed him off from doing the chagiga, okay? And also pushed him off from doing korban pesach. The Gemara says, Efshar da'avid b'sheni. Well, maybe what happens regarding korban pesach, we said it's possible he can bring it on Pesach Sheni, and therefore he would not miss out at all on doing a korban pesach. Right? B'meit nami, even in a situation where he was tumas meis, right? Corpse tuma, nami. It's also efshar da'avid b'shvi'i. Maybe there too we could get him a situation where at the end of the 7 days from corpse tuma he becomes tahor. The holiday is still in practice. Why? The Havale Shmini Shalom. Okay, because then if he's tahor on the 7th day after corpse tuma, he could still bring the chagiga on the 8th day of the holiday, okay, and bring his chagiga then. Why? Kasavar Ula, right? Because Ula's of the opinion, however, kulhu tashlumin derishoninhu, that the bringing of the korban chagiga each day is I'll say, completeness, a fulfillment of what was to be brought on the first day, right? Dechaze berishon, chaze bekulhu, that where it's fit for the first day, it's also fit for any of the other days. V'kol hecha delo chaze berishon, and where in other words, the person is not fit to bring his chagiga on the first day, lo chaze bekulhu, then he is no longer fit to bring a chagiga for any of the other days of the holiday. Right. Now, Amar laho Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman responds and tells us the following. He says to the students in the academy, Zilu va'amrule, go out and say the following to Ula, right? The Ula. Man siet, who's really going to listen to you, right? With that suggestion. Da'akar siche umashchane. You're going to say that close to the holiday, somebody is going to pull out the pegs of his tent and move his tent, right? Virahit, and run to another location to make the suggestion he should go some distance away. The Gemara tells us, Itma, on the following said was about this. Hayu rovin zavin umiutin. If we see, okay, that the majority of people, okay, were tameh because of zav, umiutan tmei metim, and the minority were tameh because of corpse. And we need to know, even though it's not pointed out till later, that there was a machloket as to whether one who's tameh zav is like other individuals that are tameh or not. Okay? So we need to keep that in mind. So we have one majority tameh zav, another minority tameh meis. Okay? Amar Rav, in this case Rav says, Otan tma'e metin, ein nan osin lo berishon velo b'sheni. Right? That minority, okay, can neither do their korban, their offering for Pesach, either on the regular Pesach or on Pesach Sheni. Why? Rishon lo avdei, they can't do it on the first Pesach, the normal, dahavu miuta, because they're a minority. Umiuta lo avde barishon. And a minority does not bring its korban on the normal, I'll say, first Pesach, but they should bring it korban Pesach Sheni. B'Sheni nami lo avde. But in this case, on the second korban Pesach Sheni, they also cannot bring it. Why? Kol heiche da avde tzibur barishon avid yachid b'Sheni. That where we say that here in a case where the community, brings their offering on the first Pesach, in a sense, it would imply that only a individual can bring it on the second Pesach Sheni. Kol heiche de lo avdei tzibur. But where the community cannot bring it, on the first, barishon, lo avid yachid b'sheni, that even, I'll say, an individual cannot bring it on the Pesach Sheni. That was Rav's view. Now, Amar laho Shmuel. Shmuel responded and said, Zilu amrule. He told the students in the academy, go out and tell Rav the following. La'abba. Remember, Rav's name was Abba Aricha. Tell him the following. There's a pasuk. V'ya'asu b'nei Yisrael et ha'pesach b'mo'ado. That one is to carry out the korban at its appointed time. Now, ma'i avadet le? So what is he supposed to do? Amarlo, he said to him, Zilu amrule. Go out and tell him the following. Ki havu kulhu zavin. When they are all zavin, ma'i avadet le. What is he supposed to do? Elekevan de lo efshar, lo efshar. That when it's not possible, it's not possible. Hachanami, lo efshar. Here too, it's not possible. Okay? That's why it's important to remember that do we consider zavin like other, tumei zav, like other tuma? And therefore, if that were to be the case, we would say then the majority of the community is tamei, and you would still bring it all the first day, right? But if you don't consider tumas zav, but you put them in the category of those that are almost like tahor, wouldn't that be a majority? Okay. So here, let's see what happens. Itmar. We now say on this the following. Havu, right? Hayu ruban tme'e metim. Say that the majority were tamei mes. Umiutan zavin. And the minority now is tamei zav. Rav Huna Amar, says Rav Huna, ein tashlumin lepesach haba betuma. According to Rav Huna, there is no, let's use the word repayment, paying back, do-over, right? For the Korban Pesach, when, right, the community is primarily, the majority is in Tumah. V'Rav Ada Amar, Bar Abba Abama, he says, Yesh tashlumin lepesach haba betuma. That he claims that there is a payback, a repayment, a way of fulfilling the Korban Pesach when the community is in Tumah. Nema bahaka miflage. Let us say this is what they are basically arguing about. Demand amar ein tashlumin lepesach haba betuma. That according to the one who says that there is no repayment, I'll use that term, for the Korban Pesach, in a situation of Tumah, which seemed to have been Rav Huna's view. Kasavar is of the opinion, Tuma dechuyahi b'tzibur, that the tuma is pushed off in a communal situation. Uman da amar yesh tashlumin l'pesach haba b'tuma. But according to the one who says that there is a repayment, okay, for the Korban Pesach when the situation is Tameh, Kasavar Tuma Hutra B'tzibur, seems to be of the opinion that Tuma, that bringing the Korban Pesach when the community is Tameh is permitted. Okay? Amre. So let's say as follows, says the Gemara. Lo. No, that's not the case. Okay? That's not really what they're arguing about. Kuli alma tuma dechuya b'tzibur. No, that really everybody, in other words, Rav Huna and Rav Adabar Ahava, actually agree that tuma is put off in a communal situation. Ubaha pligi. And this is what they seem to be arguing about. Namely, as we go over, Mar Savar Tahara Midchia. Okay? One master holds, right, that where there is purity, it puts off. Tuma lo madchia. That tuma never puts off. Okay? Umar Savar Afilu Tuma Nami Madchia. And the other master holds that even when there is tuma, okay, it still gets put off. Right? Itmar. Now, about this, the following was said. Hayu shlishitan zavin. Let's say we have another scenario, okay, another division.
This is a third.
Right? A third, and a third. Okay? All right. And remember, we still have the situation where we're saying that there was a machloket what the status of Tumat Zav is.
Right.
Okay? So, again, keeping that in mind, Hayu Shlishatan Zavi. If a third of the community is Tumat Zav, Ushlishatan Tahorim, and a third is Tahor, Ushlishitan Tma'e Meis, and a third is Tamei Meis. Okay. So in a moment as we continue, we could say, if you hold Tamei Zav is really Tamei, right? Then why not join them with the Tamei Meis?
You have 2/3.
And you'd have, right, a majority.
Right.
And you'd bring it in Tuma. If you say the Tamei Zav is not really Tamei, then join them with the Tahor.
Right.
Okay? So let's see what happens. Amar Rabbi Mani Bar Patish. He says as follows. Otan Tmei Metim, those who are Tamei Meis, Einan Osim Lo et Harishon V'lo et Hasheni. They are not able to bring their korban either on the first Pesach or the second Pesach. Okay. Why is that the case? And we're going to see in a moment. Barishon lo avde. They can't bring it on the first. Why? Higdilo zavim al hatohori. Why? Because if we have this machloket, do we include the zavim with the tamei or not? If we say that the number of zavim is greater and added to the number of tahori, the lo avdei betuma, then it cannot be brought in a status of tamei. Hava leit me'e metim miuta, because then, all right, those that have corpse tuma are a minority.
Right.
Umiuta lo avde barisho, and a minority cannot bring the korban on the first Pesach. B'sheni lo avde, and they can't bring it on the second Pesach. Why? Nitzarfu zavin intmei meti.
Right?
Because perhaps we will join those that are Tomei Zav
With
with
the
those that are Tomei Mace.
They'll
Delo
have to
Avdei
share
Barisha, who can't bring it on the first day.
mistake, right?
Avulaho Ruba. And then they will have a majority. Veruba lo mahu the Pesach Sheni. And the majority are not pushed off to Pesach Sheni. And so that situation at this point does not seem to have any resolve. Sorry. Okay. So our new Mishnah, okay, is going to bring us to a new area, a slightly new topic. Okay. And in doing so, we're going to see that we're going to get to the question still of Tuma, whether it is the person or whether it is the offering. Okay, so we continue. HaPesach shenizrak damo. Let's say we have a korban pesach. It's been slaughtered and the blood has been sprinkled. Okay. Ve'achar kach noda shehu tameh. And afterwards it is known that it is tameh. Now, I phrased it that way because the problem is what's tameh according to this Mishnah?
Right.
Are we sure that it's the
korban
korban
shochet.
pesach?
Could
Because
be the
that
shochet.
seems to be right. That seems to be the subject of the Mishnah, lechatchila,
Right?
or
It could be the shochet.
it could be the shochet. Right. In either case, for the moment, let's say that it's the korban. Okay. If that's the case, the Mishnah is telling us hatzitz meratzeh, okay, that the head plate of the Kohen Gadol appeases Hashem under that circumstance, and that therefore the sprinkling is acceptable and can proceed. Now the Mishnah continues, however. Nitma haguf, right? I'm going to translate goof here as the person.
Right.
Okay. If the person became tamei, okay. Now that could be the shochet.
What about
Okay. It could be,
the
let's
bow?
say, kohen.
What a Kohen, right?
Ein hatzitz meratzeh. Here we say that the head plate, right, the miter, the thing there, does not appease. Mipnei she'amru. Why? Because we say Hanazir v'oseh Pesach, a situation where we have a Nazirite and he brings his korban Pesach, right? Hatzitz meratzeh al tumat hadam, that the tzitz does appease Hashem regarding any tuma of the blood. Ve'ein hatzitz meratzeh al tumat haguf. But in that case of the Nazir, the tzitz does not appease if there is any tuma of the person.
So he's not yours.
Furthermore, finishes up the Mishnah, v'nitma tumat hatahom hatzitz meratzeh. And if one has become tameh because of tumat hatahom, and I'm going to translate hatahom here as a situation where it is later discovered that there is a grave. Okay, the grave is buried down, and one has either stood, sat, laid on something above this grave, and then afterwards it was discovered, right? In that situation, hatzitz meratzeh, the tzitz appeases. So Gemara asks initially on our first statement, Ta'ama diznizrak v'achar kach noda. The reason that we say it appeases the tzitz is because the blood has already been sprinkled, and afterwards it's
It became
known about the tumah. Aval noda va'achar kach nizrak. But if it were known that the korban itself was tameh and afterwards sprinkled, lo meratzeh, we would therefore imply, that would imply that it doesn't appease. Or minhu. But hold on a second. We're going to raise a contradiction. Al mahatzitz meratzeh. On what do we say that the tzitz brings appeasement? Al hadam, in regarding the blood. V'al habasar, and regarding the meat. V'al hachelev shenitma, and also on the fat that has become tameh. Bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, whether it was accidental or on purpose or intentional. Bein ba'ones, bein b'ratzon. Again, whether it was caused by an accident or it was done intentionally. Bein b'yachid, bein b'tzibur, whether it was done by an individual or done in a communal setting. Now, Amar Ravina, says Ravina the following, Tumato, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid. Okay, when we say it regarding to tuma, whether it was an shogeg or mezid, okay, occurred by accident or intentionally, this would seem to imply that it is appeased. Zrikato. But when we're talking about the sprinkling of the blood, b'shogeg hurtza, if it were done accidentally, there is appeasement. B'mezid, when done on purpose, lo hurtza, there is no appeasement. Now, Rabbi Shila Amar, Rabbi Shila disagrees, and he says as follows, Zrikato, regarding the sprinkling, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, hurtza, whether the sprinkling was done b'shogeg, right, or b'mezid, either way, intentional or unintentional, it's appeased. Tumato, but regarding the tumah status of the korban, b'shogeg hurtza, there, if it was unintentional, it's appeased. B'mezid, lo hurtza. But if it was done intentionally, it doesn't appease. So the Gemara continues, Ela, rather, hadikatani. But here, isn't the taught as follows? Bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid. It's said in, right, that we read before. Okay, in the Braita. Regardless of if it's unintentional or intentional. Hachi kama. This is what it means to tell us. Nitma b'shogeg. If it was tameh unintentionally. V'zarko bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid. And the blood was sprinkled, whether unintentionally or intentionally. Hurtza. That's when the tzitz appeases. V'hadikatani. And here, however, where it teaches dam shenizrak v'achar kach noda, where that part of the Mishnah said that the blood was sprinkled and afterwards known, that was towards the seifa of the Mishnah. Tama dinizrak v'achar kach noda. The reason is because it was sprinkled and afterwards realized, known. Aval noda v'achar kach nizrak, lo. But if it was known and afterwards sprinkled, no. Hu hadin. Now this has got to be the same reasoning, the same law. Da afilu noda v'achar kach nizrak. even in a situation when it was known and afterwards sprinkled. V'hai katani nizrak ve'achar kach noda, and the fact that the end of the Mishnah taught a situation where it was sprinkled and afterwards known. Mishum debai lemitnei seifa. Why? Because it was necessary to teach at the end of the Mishnah, nitma haguf ein hatzitz meratzeh, where the person's himself became tameh, there the tzitz does not appease. Da'afilu nizrak v'achar kach noda lo, that even when it was sprinkled and afterwards known, it still does not appease. So the Gemara says, Katane Resha, but it's taught in the beginning of the Mishnah, Nami Nizrak v'achar kach noda. There it's also taught, okay, that it was sprinkled and afterwards known.
Right.
Okay, so the implication seems to be, again, more a literary structure. Okay, since we have to teach, on the one hand, about the korban and also about the goof, the person, so therefore, again, we have to teach. In one case, do we say, is it sprinkled or not?
Right.
When is it sprinkled and when is it known?
It was known, right.
Okay. All right, we get to the new part of the Mishnah. Nitma tumat hatahom. Okay. Let's say that it was known that the person had become tameh after the fact by having been standing, sitting, lying over a later discovered grave. Right? By Rami Bar Chama, he asks the following question. Kohen hamaratzeh bekorbanotehen, okay, hutra lo tumat hatahom olo. Let's say we have a Kohen and his offerings have been appeased. Okay. In that case, is he permitted? Okay, are those offerings, for example, permitted, particularly if he must eat from them, or also if they have to bring kapara, right? Are they permitted in a situation where that Kohen could have been, all right, tameh from a tahom situation or not? Mi amrinan ki gemire tumat hatahom beba'alim. Are we talking, asks the Gemara, about a situation where we've learned that tumas tahom applies to the owners, the Kohen lo gemire, and with regards to the Kohen, we haven't learned it. O Dilma, or perhaps bezivcha gemire. We're talking about the offering itself that we learned. Lo shna bekohen, v'lo shna beba'alim. And therefore there's no difference regarding the Kohen and no difference regarding the owners. Amar Rava. Says Rava Tashma, listen to the following Braita to see if it gives us an answer. The Tani Rabbi Chia, it's taught by Rabbi Chia, lo amru tumat hatahom. They did not say in regards to tumas tahom, ela lemeit bilvad. That only applied to a situation where it was a grave corpse, right? A corpse in the grave. Mate lema'ute mai. When you say it applies to a corpse, what does it come to exclude? Lav lema'ute tumas hatahom sheretz. Doesn't it therefore come to exclude a situation of tumas tahom as applied to a sheretz? Ubamayas Kenan. Then what are we dealing with? Asks the Gemara. Inema ba'alim. If we're saying we're dealing with the owners, b'man. According to whom? Ibn Nazir. If we're talking it's regards to a Nazareth, mi mahani be, do we say it's permitted for him? Ki yamut meit alav. We already have a pasuk that tells us if someone dies, okay, and as a result of that corpse tuma, it impacts on the Nazir. Amar Rachmana, that's what the Torah says. In other words, it impedes his Nazir status. And therefore, maybe it doesn't apply to Ba'alim. Ele ba'oseh Pesach. It must then apply to someone who's bringing the Korban Pesach. So we say in that case, Hanech leman da'amar ein shochtim v'zorkim al t'ma'ei sheretz. Therefore we say that one does not slaughter or sprinkle the blood in regards to a situation of tamei sheretz. The Gemara continues. Ela leman da'amar shochtim v'zorkin al tamei sheretz. But what about according to the ones who say that we can slaughter and can sprinkle the blood in regards to those that might be tamei sheretz? Hashta tuma yedu'ah hutralo. This would seem that to indicate that now that we know that tama impurity is known, that it's permitted to go ahead, right, for that person. Tumat hatahom lo kol sheken. If that's the situation when we know it's tumat sheretz, then tumas tahom, okay, where it's only later discovered, right? How much more so shouldn't we be able to go ahead and do the Pesach for that person? El lav bekohen. Rather, it's not, isn't it not in the situation of the Kohen? Ushma mina, and we have to learn from this, hutra lo tumat hatahom, that his acts are permitted even in a situation where he may be possibly tamei in regards to tumas tahom. Now, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef wants to argue, lo, that's not the case. We're not talking about the Kohen. La'olam ba'alim u'b'pesach. We're talking about the owners who bring the Korban Pesach. Ulama'ute tumat hatahom deziva. And we're excluding a situation where the tumas tahom is due as a result of ziva or zav, right? The tumat tahom deziva lo miratze, asks the Gemara. Are we saying then that a situation of one, okay, who brings a korban and they are discovered to have tumas tahom as a result of zav, that's not appeased? Bahatanya, but aren't we taught elsewhere in a Braita? Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says as follows: Shomeret Yom Keneged Yom. If we have a woman who is observing one day for each day, namely, she had a flow, and she might be a Zava Katana, because she does not know. Okay, so she had it one day, she has to check the next day. What's her status going to be? Okay, because only if she has it 3 days do we know then that she's a total or a Zava Gadola in that situation, and therefore, right, truly Tmeah. Okay, so what happens then? Shomered Yom Keneged Yom, Sheshchato V'Zarko Aleh, okay, that they slaughtered, right, the animal, and they sprinkled the blood, let's say on her behalf, right? What happens, right? B'shene shala, okay? V'achar kach ra'ata, they sprinkled it on the second day, right? And afterwards she still sees blood again. Eina ochelet, she's not permitted to eat from that korban pesach. Uptura mila asot pesach sheni, and she is exempt from having to bring another korban pesach on pesach sheni. Ma'itama, what's the reasoning? La mishum demratzet tzitz. Isn't it going to be because the tzitz has appeased? We're going to see what the answer is tomorrow. Okay? So that's where we'll pick up.